Hello, my name is Sarah Smith. I am VTAC's Minecraft coordinator. And I am here today with Sydney Latimer for our Halloween pumpkin party workshop in preparation for our fantastic Minecraft Halloween pumpkin party. So let's get started by introducing our fabulous guest lecturer. I'm so excited. So Sydney Latimer, aka DivineWords, is a queer interdisciplinary artist, writer, and activist from the Twin Cities, Minnesota. As a poet and visual artist, they've worked with The Last Poets, Ursula Rucker, Idea and Abilities, Brother Ollie, The Gorilla Girls, and Barry McGee. Since 2015, Sydney has been developing a new experimental Afro-Gothic surrealism project called Divine's Toxic Tea Party, which is best described as the exploration of post-apocalyptic dreamscapes in the unsettlingly creepy landscape of the Uncanny Valley. Outside of their accomplishments in performance and in visual arts, Sydney is a member of the Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society, a former contributor of the Huffington Post, a three-time marathon finisher, Tough Mudder No-Cal finisher, and has been recognized several times over the years for their outstanding achievements in the arts and community activism for social justice and LGBTQ rights. Hi, Sydney.
I always hate hearing my bio.
I tried to make it fun at least.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You did a great job.
Right. Well, I'm super excited to have you doing this lecture today. And
I'm so excited to be with you, Sarah. It's been a while.
yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
I'm missing you at VTAC.
But I'm here still.
Yeah, you are still here.
So
yeah.
I'm so proud of everything you all are doing, and I can't wait to check out what you guys are gonna do in Minecraft. I haven't been there in a while, and I bought a new gaming computer. So
Ooh, so maybe you can check in and see what our
get
builders
into it,
do.
it's not gonna crash my computer anymore.
Good. All right, well, let's see. We'll pop into our next slide because you're quite the prop set and costume designer, alongside your visual art.
Do you want me just to talk about my prop design and
Yes, please. What do you have to say?
Okay.
You do a ton of this. It's super cool. Can you talk a little bit about your prop set and costume design?
Yeah. So I actually wasn't really like a maker or crafter. My mom is a master craftswoman. She can literally make anything. So I grew up in a house where every weekend on Fridays, my mom would take us to Frank's Nursery and Craft, which is basically what Michael's is now. And she'd get us some type of crafting thing. So we always did crafts, but I never felt like I was good enough at it. I always just buy popsicle sticks and make the same box over and over again. But yeah, we did all types of crafting projects and art in making stuff was a huge part of my childhood. And I basically learned by watching my mother. And so for a while I had some nerve damage in my right hand because I had gotten to an accident, and I lost my ability to draw. It was really difficult for me. And so I had a creative block for many years, and it was kind of associated with the lack of mobility in my hand and stuff like that, and I was really sad about it. But then I gradually started drawing again. But then I think it was around the time I got married, I started doing we did all the crafting for my wedding, and I just realized how much I love making stuff. And I just saw I had a natural ability to kind of make anything that I wanted to make. I can kind of basically I get an idea and then I reverse engineer it. So
Nice.
that's kind of my process. So just showing you what's on the screen, that Zeppelin, that's a 5 foot tall, by 4 feet wide. It's suspended. So part of that is that's actually made out of styrofoam. It looks like it's wood and all these things, but I've actually it's very, very light and really, really detailed. And I use some found objects, some things I make, some things I buy, but basically it turned out a little better than I thought it was going to. And I really enjoyed that. But I used to do huge oversized props for commercial decor. So that was part of a commercial decor thing at the store I used to work at. That machine props, those are actually machines that are made out of cardboard boxes. I got some stuff at Axeman Surplus and created this. This was for a music video. It was a makeshift, like 12 Monkeys kind of science lab. So I had to make these cool machines. And yeah, they're literally made out of boxes with balsa wood. The key to making props is that you want something that's light, because you have to generally bring in all your props. Like if you work on a music video or like in a store like this is suspended with magnets from a ceiling. So you don't want anything to fall. If you work in theater, you can't have things that are glass to break. So props are essential, that they look like what you want them to be, but they're not actually those things. So that's kind of what's fun about it. And my shrines, I wouldn't say so much they're props, but they're, like, I would say exquisite altars and shrines. And but I think they go in the same vein where all of these creative talents and skill sets that I have to make very commercial kind of stuff, I kind of take it overload on the shrines. So the shrine would be basically throwing the kitchen sink at it. Also, heavily inspired by my background as I grew up Catholic in a Caribbean family. And so ancestor work is very important to me, and that's part of it. But I do love making physical objects. Like, I never thought I was a great sculptor, even though I'm realizing I have probably more skills in sculpting than I think I do. But I always wanted to make stuff with my hands versus just drawing, and crafting and making allows me to do that. Some things I make from absolute scratch, and some things I take found objects and I recreate them. But my work is translated on the streets, like the shrine, into commercial spaces, into theater spaces, and film as well. So I think it's probably my favorite thing to do is just make stuff. And when I become an old dude, I just want to like retire and be a carpenter and make rare wood furniture that nobody can afford.
Fantastic. That's really truly the dream.
I just want to make stuff all day.
Fantastic. That's such the dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. So today you're going to be covering for us your artistic process, kind of set and sculpture design, and then
Yeah.
how to get spooky with it.
Yeah. Well, I just started sharing my artistic process in the last 5 years. I suffered from imposter syndrome and insecurity as an artist, because comparison is definitely the thief of joy. And I'll tell any artist, if you're struggling with not putting your work out there, or throwing pictures away that you're drawing and they don't come out right, they don't come out right. And so they stay in a sketchbook for years. I think that that's doing yourself a disservice and the people in the world, because your work's probably much better than you think it is. We tend to kind of limit ourselves in our potential as artists, because we're insecure. So part of me was just finding out what kind of art do I like to do, what am I good at, and also what am I willing to dedicate to learn how to do. Like, I started doing paper art about 5 years ago, origami and stuff like that. So I think that for me, just stepping out and saying, hey, I can make stuff. Yes, I can do multiple mediums, and being confident in that. Uh-oh. Hello? Sorry about that. I always compare myself to other artists. So that was problematic. And so when I stopped doing that, I started creating the most magnificent things. I just decided, like, sky's the limit. Whatever I want to make, basically, I think about it, I study it, I dwell on it. I almost become obsessive about it for multiple days. And then I end up like getting an idea in my mind. And before, my ideas would never be clear. But the older I get and the more in touch with myself I get, my ideas are exceptionally clear. And so I just have to figure out, I see that, what I want to make, and then I just got to reverse engineer the steps. And I also stay open-minded. So if I'm looking for a shape, let's say I needed a sphere, I couldn't find a paper mache sphere, so I have to look around and see like what's going to be light enough, what's going to be the right shape, what's going to be durable enough, and you have to consider all these things. So you got to stay open-minded if you're going to be a maker of any sort. That and this could apply to Minecraft too, that what you end up using might end up being something that you weren't thinking of using. So it's just getting out of the box. If you want to make something truly unique, don't look at any of your things that you have and say, oh, I can't use that. Like, stay completely open-minded in that process. So it's kind of what I do. And then I think the hardest part in the process of it is staying organized, cleaning your tools as you go, making sure your brushes are clean. I have a tendency to be wasteful and like be so tired because I'll get so into my art. And so you got to think about cleanup time and things like that. And also some of these projects might take days and days and days. So how are you going to keep your project organized while you're doing it? Which, especially if you have a time crunch, which most of the time in scenic design and theater, you are on a complete like timeline. So you have to really make sure that your projects are going smoothly and reach out for help. And also sometimes you're just taking on too much. Sometimes simplicity is better to get the job done if you're doing it for commercial stuff. But I say if it's for you, take your time and explore like I did with this paper clay.
Fantastic. Well, in that same vein, then, as you go about your artistic process, how do you generate your ideas when you want to make stuff?
I never, ever since I started doing surrealism and whimsical art, I never not have something I want to do. I don't run out of ideas ever. When I tried to make my art make sense, then I would never have ideas. But now, also too, like I have a lot of special interests. So when I see references, I keep them in a Google Drive. So when I'm going to look for something, and also making your own references, using like Photoshop or Pro Tools or something like that. Not Pro Tools, but like Procreate. You can make your own references as well. For this, I actually had a pumpkin that my husband bought. And so it's been on my counter. So I actually use that as my reference. So it's just kind of like, yeah, just I never run out of ideas. If all else fails, you
Nice.
do My Little Pony fan art.
There you go.
Yeah, there's always something to draw or make.
Nice. All right. Well, then with that, how do you go about planning a sculpture?
I don't know.
Well, you
You
said a
just
little bit you
dive
work
in it. Yeah.
backwards from an idea.
Well, definitely. Okay, so I think let's talk about the process we even thought about this project. Like, we knew that it was going to be to a certain demographic of people who may or may not be old enough to use a kiln or an oven or don't have access to that. We thought about something that would be slightly more earth friendly if someone's going to do it at home. So that's what I first do is I think about what materials am I gonna use, and I try to reuse stuff as much as possible. I use a lot of junk in my art, and I also try to use stuff like if you have a necklace that fell apart, rather than throwing it away, I would keep something like that. So then, like if I end up wanting to bedazzle or bejewel or make something ornate, I would just take something that I already have. So that's I don't plan the sculptures as much as I plan the theme of it. And then when I see stuff that I want to do that matches that, then I'll grab those things. But I definitely think like starting off with your materials, and also giving yourself time, to either create a style of something that you can make easily, because most of my sculptures are actually like little figurines, and I make them out of Sculpey. But I make the cutest little figurines, and I've made them for years since I was a kid. And basically, like I came up with the design, and then like people would order them. I'd make angels, and I'd make little people, and there's a ton of like miniature artists like on Instagram that make miniature Sculpey stuff, which would be very, um, like accessible for pretty much anybody, but especially kids that want to try sculpture. Like you don't have to make some huge like thing. Like what you can start off with can be very small. So I just kind of plan it by figuring out like what do I want to see at the end of it, or what kind of experience do I want to have while I'm doing it? Because for sculpting, I'm still like learning a lot, especially with different mediums. Most of my sculpture has been with polymer clay. I've done some earth clay stuff, but it's very messy.
C'est la vie. That's how it
Yeah,
goes. Every material has its trade-offs. But they're all fun to work with in their own ways.
yeah, for sure.
That makes me curious about something, but I'll ask about it later after we've talked about
Okay.
set design. I'm racking up questions for our.
I'm trying to like make land my plane every time because I could talk about this with you for days.
I figure. So then how do you go about building a scene?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So even with the project that we did today, I wanted to tell a story. And what did I wanna like create? Well, I wanted to create a character that was cheerful but creepy, and I wanted to celebrate fall. So how do you in this little space like create something? So I'll just show you since we're going to talk about it. But this is what I ended up coming up with. I wanted to, it's not just like a pumpkin sitting there. Like he has a whole story. He's like, did he fall and all the leaves are like crashing around him, or are they falling from the trees? Like you don't know. So that's the story that I tell. And so what tells those stories are the details, the little details, the extra effort that you put in. And it does not have to be overkill. It could be one little tiny thing that you do that makes it super special. And yeah, that's what I try to do in that storytelling, whether it be like for my wedding, the theme was peacock, but I was kind of inspired by labyrinth. And so I used one of their reference photos that they had for their promo, and it was a blue ombre kind of. So I used that color scheme. So I wasn't referencing that photo specifically and trying to recreate that exactly. What I wanted was the inspiration. So I take the inspiration, and that's how you can make something that is not plagiarism or a copycat, but something that's truly unique because you've actually like thought about what story you wanted to tell. And yeah, I think for this one, it was a little challenging because like I talked to you, I was like, I want to do something super. I always want to go super scary, but it's always cute scary when I do it. And so, but I still wanted this character to have some personality, a little edge, but still be cute. And I think I nailed it.
Seconded. I think that goal was achieved.
Yeah, I was surprised because I was scared.
So then can you talk a little bit about how each element in the little scene you've built kind of tells the story that's your goal there?
Well, yeah, like okay, so I thought about a base, like having a base. I always think about, especially with sculptural stuff, because I do paper flowers and stuff, and I always put them on a base because I'm thinking, is this thing going to be able to sit by itself? And I talked about this in the video as well. Like when you're doing whimsical stuff or stuff that's kind of like surrealism, in sculpture, or like, let's say you're doing prop design of some sort, you want it to be an exaggeration of the truth, but still possible. It's kind of like in Minecraft. Like you could build almost anything, but then when you go in and you're like, structurally, would this be able to exist in nature? So like, yes, like maybe those pumpkins wouldn't just stay on his head like that, but would it actually, like a topsy-turvy cake, those are actually just visual. They're just visual illusion, because that cake has scaffolding in it. You know what I mean? So structurally it actually is sound, but it just doesn't look sound. So that's like everything you're doing in prop design. If you're making something whimsical, how do you plan that? Like even some things like things need skeletons. If you make mannequins, they don't just stand up. Like you actually have to make infrastructure for that. So sometimes you plan on doing something, you're like, oh, this is going to be easy, but the I think that understanding a little bit of physics will help you when you're doing prop design, because it has to not fall over. Sometimes just getting something to stand up is big. So for this, I started out with the base, like what is the base going to be, but how can that base also fall into my story? Also there's like some a little bit more hardcore. It has like the skull hands and stuff, so that's where I brought that element of like it being a little spookier. um and then the leaves and stuff, I just wanted to go super fall with it. I thought it would make it a little warmer since it is a little scary to have button eyes. So it's the juxtaposition, I think that tells a good story. And that's what my a lot of my art is. It's cute, but it's a little creepy, or it's sad, but it's also very humorous. Like I try to put different opposing things that are complementary, and then I have multiple themes that might run through one project. And I feel like if I just keep weaving back to those themes, and it will have cohesion. It's kind of like, I don't know, I think that's one thing about my art is that I do a lot of planning as far as how do you interconnect a whole series of something and make each one different, but it needs to go together harmoniously. And sometimes it's jazz, sometimes it's noise.
Well, no matter what, you end up with good music. So,
Yeah, exactly. I think yeah, being committed, and being committed to, not necessarily committed like dogmatically, but committed as far as you're going to figure out that creative problem solving thing that you need to deal with until you get something which may not be what you had intended, but until you get something that's acceptable for whether it be deliverables that you have to actually produce because you've been paid to do art, or just making sure that your idea gets out. But if it's your own personal art, it can always be a first draft or first try. Does not mean you have to abandon that project, that style, that medium just because one project didn't work out. Perhaps it's better for another project, but you're still going to learn throughout that process, which is how you gain your skill set.
and with that, you also, for your set design, you have to do models beforehand, right? Smaller versions.
Uh, you,
Like you showed me with your bottle tree.
yeah, you have to do everything in scale, and then actually, like in theater, you have to do a model of the thing. It's almost like creating a dollhouse,
Hmm.
but it's very technical because like I'm used to building my own stuff. So for me to make plans to for someone else, professional builders, to make my ideas was very difficult for me. It was very difficult. It requires a lot of definitely a lot of planning and communication. I definitely think I kind of jumped into scenic design without knowing what I was doing. I would definitely tell someone to shadow someone else or go to college for that. But there is definitely jobs out there for that. But yeah, there is so much in the process, and also you have to be there throughout all the techs. You have to work with other people, lighting. Sometimes a lot of videos being incorporated in the theater these days. So there's a lot that you have to do, and I think that it's not for everybody. But if you have the heart, you want to do it, I'd say, go for it. I'm just gonna plug my iPad in here so we don't die.
Oh yeah, we don't want you to die mid-video. That'd
No,
be
no,
too
don't want to do
scary.
that.
All right then. Um, so then how do you kind of, and we talked about this a little bit with making sure we have, earth safe materials, but how do you go about picking materials? And do you have advice for kind of transitioning this kind of project into Minecraft?
Yeah, I would say go outside of the box, and also think of things that are, if we're talking about spooky stuff specifically, pick spooky stuff that inspires you. Like for mine, it was Coraline. For somebody else, it may be like, some other type of movie or Alfred Hitchcock or whatever. Oh, God, I just dated myself with that reference. But hey, it just depends on what you think is scary and what you think is spooky. And if all else fails, you could do the center point of cool and cute, but also very spooky, like Disney level spooky is pretty spooky. So I think there's a lot of places you could go for inspiration. But also too, like if you're gonna build, I don't know what you guys are building. If you're building like a haunted house, wow, that would be amazing. I'm sure there's a lot of houses, in the Twin Cities, but if you're building, I don't know, like a giant pumpkin or something like that, I would definitely look at what people are doing with outdoor sculpture. Because, like a sculpture garden, like how would that sit out, you know, um something very oversized? And how can you create that being so grand in a place like Minecraft? How do you set your thing apart from the other things that are within the landscape, or do you use the landscape? Like there's all different ways that you could go about that. But I would say definitely, if they were to pick their spots wherever they're going to build, make sure that the outside surroundings goes in with their build, because you could find something very cool. I think that's almost creepy in itself, is that there's something very unnatural in a very natural area that's just kind of there. Like, how do you get there?
Ooh,
What's
yeah.
that story? And then think about what story you want to tell with your Minecraft stuff, because the stories that I've seen told there, I'm blown away. I with the simple materials that Minecraft has, the creativity is within how you use that. And so I'm excited to see what they will do. What materials, like I would say definitely, if you want to go spooky and kind of like weird, then definitely use some materials that are counterintuitive. That's what I'd like to see. Like use unorthodox materials, and what do you do with them?
Fabulous. Excellent advice. So then, how do you get into your spooky art mindset? We've talked a little bit about this, but
If all else fails, Tim Burton. No, I'm not super in it. Like, I don't know, I'm weird as far as like I don't watch jump scare movies. I do like psych thrillers, and I like really old movies. So I like movies like The Bad Seed and The Old Little Shop of Horrors. And that, oh my gosh. So those old shows that are in black and white, most of them are done almost theatrically. Um, and they're done in one or two sets. So I really pay attention to the set design, and some of them it's kind of like watching old Star Trek. Those things are handmade. And so I get a big kick out of just seeing like how did they use those materials. Um and definitely lately I've been watching Tales from the Dark Side, which is a show that was on back in the 80s. And so it's
yep,
kind of
it's a
they have
classic.
yeah, they're like the Outer Limits and then Tales from the Dark Side and like, Creep Show and all these like kind of scary things. So I do a lot of nostalgia kind of throwback. So a lot of my art actually is from mid-century, like the 50s. I think a lot of their advertisements are innately creepy. So I just make those creepier by reproducing them in my style. So that's kind of how I get into the spooky mindset. And yeah, definitely, like I also like Disney, um and they have a lot of cool Halloween stuff. And every year I gotta watch Coraline. I think stop motion in general is my favorite because it's inherently creepy. And so I'll watch something like that. Like there's the stop motion movie Alice. Have you ever seen that? Yeah, it's very creepy. So yeah, I think stop motion is the way to go.
I love that. So then, is there anything else you want to share with young crafters while I pull together my final questions?
Yeah. Definitely start building a small inventory of things that you can always have on hand to use. Definitely reusing things, like if you get something that has ribbon on it, keep that ribbon. Or if you see a cool box or some kind of weird object that's maybe a tube or something like that. If you plan on becoming a crafter, you may want to keep those things on hand because sometimes you're going to be looking for, like I said, unorthodox materials to build what you're building. And just keep an open mind. When I do creative problem solving or brainstorming, there are no bad ideas until you're ready to put a plan in order. But don't discount something just because you don't think it will work. Go ahead and try it and then see how it goes.
Awesome advice. So thank you so much for lending us your expertise and for fingers crossed judging our awesome competition next week.
Oh, Sarah, I almost invited myself to do it because I'm excited to try my new computer out in Minecraft. So
Woo.
I can't wait to do that. And I'll be sure to share it with all my friends who, are into spooky season or they got kids that do Minecraft and check out. I love the walkthroughs. They're so fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for lecturing and judging. And if you, watchers and listeners, are interested in participating in our fantastic pumpkin party build contest, where you can build anything pumpkin related and potentially win some awesome prizes, that is October 29th from 2 to 5 p.m. on our Victoria Theater Arts Center Minecraft server. You can register at the link tinyurl.com/vtac-pumpkin. That's tinyurl.com/vtac-pumpkin. We look forward to seeing you there. All right. Peace out.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye.